Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Blossom Music Center 2025. This is Blossom's debut, first concert of the year. We get to always start it off. We do have a lot to do tonight, so we're going to try and move very quickly. You're starting to hear the 6th grade behind me, and then we'll move on. So they're going to start off with Caribbean Island Getaway, which hopefully some of you are going. I told them, I think it was them, but if they each sell about 1,000 Domino's cards, we'll take them to the Caribbean, and that'll be fun. So hope you guys enjoy.
Yeah.
our first transition and invite the 7th graders to come on up. Let's hear it one more time for our 6th graders. First time at Blossom. Music Club President Mrs. Earhart is cleaning out the storage room at the high school. So if you want any old band merch, it is still up there, and I think no offer will be refused eventually. So help yourself. We'll be with you in about 2 minutes with the 7th grade. Don't be scared, it's just Star Wars season. So here's our first one from the 7th grade, the Imperial March. Well, thank you. That the red light, I don't know how they did that. That hurts after a while. All right. Our next song is going back. This is a theme, Star Wars in the Caribbean, I guess. We're gonna go to Aruba with Aruba Tuba. We're featuring Tate Nelson and Lucas Keenan up front on the tubas. Thank you very much. We're gonna, well, before anything else, can we say a good job to Marcos on guitar? And the whole percussion section keeping us rocking out back here. We're gonna switch to 8th grade. 8th graders, if you guys start making your way up, we'll be back to you guys in about 3 minutes. Thank you. All right, we're gonna keep on going with some Spider-Man in case your spidey senses were tingling. All right, thank you guys very much. That concludes the middle school portion, almost, of our concert tonight. We're going to do our longest switch. If you need to use the restroom, this would be the best time, or buy some more band merch. That'd be great. And we're going to bring up the jazz band. They'll be ready in about 5 to 8 minutes. And then high school, and then we'll invite everybody back up at the end for our final song. So take a quick breather, and we'll be right back. All right, students especially, find those seats. We are ready to roll. The jazz band this year is under the direction of Mrs. Lambert, and they've been doing a great job. I wanted to share a little bit with you tonight. This is their last performance for the year. Woo! And as the high schoolers are here, yeah, right? Next Wednesday, the 21st, we'll be back. The band will be playing for graduation, and a lot of these kids up here are graduating. So this is our last performance here for the seniors. All right, jazz band, let's go.
Jazz band is going to do one more number. This is the students' favorite song, and it is Sway.
Great job, jazz band. We're gonna do one more quick switcheroo. Most of the bands are already set, and then we'll be back to you in about 2 minutes with high school. The last arrangement of St. Louis Blues was based on a Canadian brass performance they used to do of it many years ago. And now we're going to do a Gershwin song, Summertime, which I have heard the orchestra do right here on this stage before. Not this arrangement, but it's a great one, and we are excited that we have about 11 more days of school, and then summertime will hit for all of us. So here we go, Summertime.
It's 9.
guys very much. We have two more things for you tonight. First, we want to honor our seniors and welcome our incoming freshmen. So 8th grade band, would you please bring your instruments and come on up, 8th grade band. Sorry, 8th grade band. And seniors, let's have you guys come up right up in the front here. You've seen them all night from our flute section. We have Eli, Parker and Eden from the saxophones, come on up. Izzy from the French horn, trumpet, and oboe and choir section. Come on up, seniors. We've got Raven from our majorettes and trumpets. And way in the back, I don't think they could be here tonight, but Mary Finch in the percussion. And I am missing people. Who we're missing? Lily Sterling, yep, you're here. Come on up, Lily. Too bad. And Rachel Raid couldn't be here tonight. And who else did I miss? I think that's it, right? So our seniors, like we said, will be back here next Wednesday, May 21st for graduation, and we like to play the alma mater one more time as a band together. You guys can play, sing, cry, sway, hug, whatever you like. If you are a parent, grandparent of one of our seniors, would you guys stand up for a minute? Not only, yeah, come on. Not only did you guys raise awesome kids, thank you guys. But we would be here for about 10 more hours if I told you all the stuff these parents did to volunteer between cookies and live streaming and all the things. So thank you all, senior parents, and you're always welcome to help the music club even after your kids graduate. All right, we're gonna try this alma mater one time, and the 8th graders have joined us ceremoniously, and they're gonna hang out on stage while we play. All right, last song of the night, 7th and 8th graders, would you guys walk up with your instruments? We can spread out across the whole stage. We're gonna all play Go Woody Go for you. All of the students will bring their instruments back to school for the last week. We will play a little bit. But once we're done in a minute, you are welcome to take them home and go get some ice cream or whatever you like. Thanks again, have a wonderful summer. If you're out and about on Memorial Day, the band will be at Boston Heights at 8:30, Cuyahoga Falls Parade at about 9, and Peninsula at 11, and Boston Township at about 1. And have a great summer.